going. There we go. It's
There we
1:30
go.
Central. Let's get going.
Sounds good.
Yep. All right. I'm Jason Sellnow with Straightforward Financial Insights. We are a fractional CFO firm, and I'm here today with Matthew Ziemke from Sales Acceleration. So, Matthew, you want to do a quick introduction? And we've
Sure. My
got some
name's,
exciting questions. So,
yeah,
sorry.
that's okay. I'm Matthew Ziemke from Sales Acceleration, Wisconsin. I'm a fractional CSO, VP of Sales. And so I work with small to mid-sized companies. I'll say 5 to 100 million in size and revenue. And I work with their sales team and helping organizations who want to grow their company, take it to the next level. They'll bring on somebody like myself to help them get there.
Yeah, nice. And did I miss it or territory?
Territory, I'm in Madison, Wisconsin, is where I'm actually located. I'll work all over. I do have three other partners at Sales Acceleration, Wisconsin, two in the Milwaukee area and one up in the Appleton area. So if I can help you, I have three other partners I can actually kind of farm out and they take over and they probably do just as good a job, if not better than myself. So.
Well, very nice. Very nice. Matthew, I think you and I have talked about this before. I mean, the post-COVID world has kind of changed that. Back in the day, if you couldn't walk through the door, forget about it. So it kind of,
Exactly.
that it was like an hour radius. Radius? Yeah.
Yep.
From wherever you were at. How has that changed at all for you?
I've actually had clients as far away as the UP, Eau Claire area, and one out of state client as well. Uh, I guess the one upside of COVID was doing stuff like this, and people got used to it. So as a fractional CSO, you can actually do what I do on a remote basis. Just a little bit more effort, but it has worked nicely for myself and for others. I actually had one local client that I took on during the COVID, and we actually did everything remote right here in Madison because that's kind of how they wanted to do it. So, um, you know, gone are the days, I guess, of you have to be face to face. I personally, even though I have the ability with Zoom, I like to get out there a couple times face to face, especially if I'm a fractional CSO and part of the executive team. I'd like to get there on a monthly or bi-monthly basis to get face to face with people and the rest of the executive team.
Yeah, it's been very similar on this end. I mean,
Okay.
there's definitely a footprint in the Milwaukee area because that's where I
Yep.
started. So you network with people and you have bankers that you've known for years, and so there's that
Yes.
footprint. But then because of that dynamic, change, we have a couple clients in Hawaii. Now I haven't been there to visit them yet. It's a little bit of a longer commute than going to the UP, but I agree that being able to be in person, it's just preferred, but
Yes.
it's not an absolute requirement, at least on our end, given the discussion about the two clients in Hawaii. So
Right.
yeah. Well, let's get going a little bit here. I mean,
Sure.
today, it was good that we could have that, little discussion and do an introduction. I mean, today's not just about tactics or financial discipline. It's like how the two of us, work together and,
Right.
fuel each other. So, you know, one of, your first sales drivers in your framework talks about having a defined sales strategy,
Yep.
knowing your ideal client, understanding buyer personas, clearly differentiating from competitors. So, what does defined really look like in practice? And what do you see happen when businesses, skip or try to shortcut that step?
Sure. It's one that I like to talk to my clients about. Hey, when you think about what I'm trying to get across to people here, it's really saying, what do my 20 best customers look like?
Mhm.
Um, and they go like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, if you had to draw up what an ideal client profile would look like, or a lot of people call it ICP, what describe for me what they really would look like? And a lot of people will start with revenue and oh, they're X amount of revenue to our organization. And I'm like, well, that's good, but how about maybe we flip that a little bit and say, how about how much margin, how much profit do they actually bring into the organization versus how much revenue? And that gets people to start thinking. My CFOs love when I start talking about that kind of language, by
Oh
the
yeah.
way. Because that's where you're really going to make the impact. And so it's even taking that top 20 and saying, what are you really good at? And identifying, what that actually might be. What do they actually look like? You know, how do they interact with you? Are you just a vendor, or do you actually have a relationship with them? And do you know what their business and where they're going, and they know about where you are as well? You talked about demographics and geographics, where they're located or size of company. Maybe there's an industry that you're really good at that you can come together and be like, yeah, we're really strong in this particular industry. Those are some of the things when I'm building an ideal client profile, I'll start walking people through because it's like, where do you want to spend your time? Um, uh, you can spend it shotgunning it, or you can spend it, as I call it, the rifled approach, in really identifying those people in the upper, what I call left-hand quadrant, saying, hey, that's where you want most of your business to come from. Those are the types of clients that are going to bring the most money into your organization. I'll even throw out things like, hey, do they even pay on time?
Oh,
Um,
for
and,
sure. Yeah, and
and
you're speaking my language there.
exactly. So I usually get CFO buy-in right away as well. I should probably say that in a prior life I was a banker, so I get it.
We
Uh,
forgive you. Yep, it's okay.
and have had an opportunity to run a couple organizations as well. So, as a sitting at the top of the chair, a lot of these things, when somebody said, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I kind of like I lean in pretty hard." But the one that really set me back the most is when I start talking to a client about what don't you want, and they're like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, what are those things that your operation people get really upset about when they bring it in because it gums up the systems, or we're not really good at that? Um, that to me is a real good indication of somebody who's got a strong ICP is when they go, I know exactly what we want and what we don't want. And so that's really important because it leads into then what are the buyer personas? And people are like, well, what do you mean by that? And I'm like, well, who are you selling to? You got the industry, but who are you actually selling to? Is it one buyer or is it multiple people that you've got to address? And more often than not, a lot of people, that's how they buy is they have committees. Do you know that? Do your salespeople know that? What roles might they be in? Are they financial? Are they operational people? What do they care about? What does their day kind of look like? So what are these characteristics of that particular buyer can we gather so we can say, okay, I know exactly what they're looking for. These are the things that we should be addressing. Some people like, hey, I'm cutting edge and I really want this newfangled product. Other people are like, yeah, we're not. We're risk adverse. So we better understand that as we're going into it as well. And so when you take that buyer persona along with your ICP, it starts to build that sales strategy. And the final leg to that stool is really sales stories. And sales stories to me are so important because it really says to the client, I understand who you are. Here's a story of a client that looked just like you. This is what they looked like prior to us being involved. And here's the value of our product and services and what we brought to them. And here's where they are now. And this is why they're so much more successful because of what we are actually able to bring to them. And so sales stories help the whole team. I always say make sure your sales stories are vetted and that everybody understands the sales stories versus everybody coming up with their own. So you make sure that you're positioning your organization exactly how you want to be positioned in the marketplace.
Yeah, and you touched on a few things there which have in common alignment between the different
Yes.
disciplines in your organization, and then the obvious alignment that everyone's, has the same story.
Yep.
Um, Real quick, ICP for someone that doesn't know the acronym, ICP is,
Ideal client profile. So
okay,
what does that ideal client profile look like?
okay,
Yep.
yep. And I'm a metaphor person. I like metaphors. I think I can distinguish metaphors from analogies, but it's not an English class, so um, but just knowing that gross margin, yeah, you're speaking my language over in the finance department because understanding that, I think, it's like if you're in a bike race, okay, I better understand if I want to climb this hill, what gear do I want to be in? You
Yes,
know?
exactly. And that's
Yeah,
and that's why the whole organization should be part of identifying what that profile looks like. It's not just a sales process, and we'll talk a little bit later about some of the other things. But that's finance has to have a seat at the table. Operations has to have a seat at the table. Of what we're doing and what we're about. Uh, and marketing has to have a seat at the table. So everybody's in alignment that, hey, this is our ideal client profile. This is what we're going to do. This is where we're going to get 80% of our business from or better. And this is why we're good. And maybe we might do a vertical off to, one step away, but we're really going to hold true to that. And we're not going to do a shotgun approach. And this is what's going to drive our business.
yeah. There's an old saying: maybe try to be everything, you're doing nothing.
You're doing nothing.
And so, yeah, alignment. We know who we're targeting and what matters and what moves the needle. Awesome, good
Yep.
stuff. All right, so another one of your drivers emphasizes tracking goals and KPIs like weekly, monthly, quarterly. Um, you know, but some metrics are more relevant or salient as far as
Yep.
true health of the organization. How do you help clients create metrics and KPIs that actually predict success?
Yeah, it's one of those things that, first of all, most businesses that I deal with, unfortunately, really don't even have a defined sales goal, which is kind of scary. It's like, hey, you've been doing this for 30 years. How have you gotten to where you're at? And this is like, it's kind of happened. Um, but even if
Yep.
they do, even if they do, it's like, well, what does good look like? What does bad look like? And again, I like to give stories because I think it's easier for people to understand. I said, imagine me trying to train myself to run a marathon. If I want to run 26.2 miles, I'm going to be very focused on I need to run 1 mile or 2 miles. It's so many times a day. There's got to be a routine. It's just got to happen. It's going to be a process, right? I don't go out and run 100 meters one day, take a week off, and come back and run 2 miles and think that I'm actually going to be able to run a marathon. Doesn't work that way. So
Hmm.
KPIs, sales metrics are kind of the things that kind of hold us and ground us. Some people like, I don't like activity goals. And I'm like, I don't mind activity as long as they lead to winning. So for example, you know, how many meetings are we going to have this week? How many proposals are we going to track this week? And how many wins did you get? So can I identify that I need 25 meetings that give me 5 proposals that eventually are going to lead to 2 wins? And if that's the metrics that we're going to hold people accountable to, and then we're going to publish that and say, hey, if you're at 10, how are you going to get to 2 when we know that history tells us that 25 is going to get us? You have to have 25 meetings. And so those have to be published and talked about throughout the organization, um, top to bottom. So your company goals and your sales team goals and your individual goals. And I always say start at the base,
Yep.
at the top, and then kind of build it down. But they should all be supporting each other all the way down throughout the organization for you to be successful, and it has to be measured on a regular basis. Again, I talked about a little bit about products. So, what are those products that we're going to focus on? Is it the whole thing, or there's 4 or 5 things that we're really good at? Let's measure those products. And you talked a little bit about it already, Jason. Is leading and lagging indicators.
Mhm.
Um, More often than not, people are pretty good at lagging indicators. It's kind of looking back, and what is that? What are we doing, and how did we do? It's the leading indicators that people miss. And so it's, how many calls did I make this week to fill my pipeline? What does that look like? And are we measuring those on a regular basis and setting up those type of activities? And do we actually have a pulse for that kind of information throughout the organization? Is it getting us to where we want to meet to go? And are we moving the needle? And if you're not doing it on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, I say you're missing the boat. Uh, People should know where they stand at all times, and it's not just the salespeople. Again, talking about alignment, I want my whole organization. I want operations people to know. I want financial people to know where we're at. Are we ahead or behind? Whatever it might be. I think it's really important that we share that up and down the line, especially with our management team, to make sure that, hey, what can we do to help sales get to where they want to be? Hey, we brought in 20 ICP type clients this month, but we only wrote one or two. How come? Let's start taking a look at how can we get to 4 or 5. Those are the types of things that you don't want to wait, uh, you know, 6 months into the year or even on a quarterly basis. That's why I always say do it weekly, do it monthly, do it quarterly on a regular basis, and set that cadence that
Mhm.
people just expect that, like, hey, we know what's going to happen. I know where I'm at a month, on the end of the week, at the end of the month, ahead or behind. And then quarterly sessions are usually just for management to say, okay, hey, we got to move the needle. What's happening? Are we ahead or behind? Let's do an analysis, and what changes are we going to make?
No, yeah. I'm hearing a lot of alignment in there, which means communication,
Oh,
and
huge.
very important from my seat as well. I wish I'd have learned that lesson a long time ago. Man, I'd be much farther ahead today. But and you touched on it several times. I mean, what we measure, we get results on.
Yes.
And that seems obvious, but yet, there's a lot of people that I've met that, they're just kind of spinning their wheels or wondering why they're not getting, to a place where they want to be at. And this doesn't necessarily have to be in business either. I mean, you're talking about goals, progress
Yeah.
goals, breaking down. I mean, I'm getting off track here a little bit, but I
No.
try to keep in shape and do, I think I was telling you about a 5K. I can't just do that right
Right.
away. I've got to go, okay, I'm going to go to Planet Fitness and, I'm going to try to run the whole time, but I know that's not happening right away. I gotta run for 2 minutes and then walk for 2 minutes. And then the next time I try to do a little bit better than that. And the point there is there's an analogy back to what you were talking about. There's that regular cadence. I'm
Yeah.
consistently getting feedback on where we're at with our progress.
Yeah, and I think it's to anything, like you pointed out, it's anything in life. I always say, get it down into bite-sized pieces. The annual goal always looks really like, oh my gosh, how are we going to do that? Until you say, hey, what does that look like on a weekly basis? And
Yeah.
what are the things that I need to do to make sure that that happens? It's no different, like you said, if you're running your 5K, you're gonna break that down into smaller chunks, and that's what's going to get you over the top. But again, it's doing the right types of activities. This ties back to what I was talking about before, making sure, hey, yeah, I see you're doing 20 sales calls, but you're not doing it to ICP clients. You're over here going after stuff that we don't want. That's probably why you're not having the success rate. So this all kind of starts tying together from top to bottom. When I put those 10 successful things together, you can see how they all start to relate. And even within the sales, this whole we probably won't get to all 10, but they start aligning and saying, hey, one builds off of the other. Um, it's really important.
Mhm. And for those companies that don't have a clearly defined sales process, where do you usually see things fall apart? You might have touched on some of this stuff already, but
Yeah,
um,
this I hate to say this, but this is the one I think most companies struggle with the most. Especially those small to medium sized companies. Larger companies are pretty good at doing this, but even there, um, and again, I kind of get it as an owner. I have been the sales department. I've done it myself, or maybe it's been a couple of us that have kind of bootstrapped this thing for many of years. So a lot of it's up here, and so they know how to sell. And so when I say, hey, what's your sales process? How do you take a lead to get it as a prospect, to get it through the system? And they kind of look at me and it's like, well, it's right here. I'm like, okay, let me step back a little bit further and say, if I was to bring on a new salesperson, how would I train them? What could I
mhm,
show them that this is how we're different? This is our process. And that kind of becomes the aha moment, like, oh my gosh. I'm like, yeah, the sales process is literally something very visual that it becomes everybody owns this. And again, we say sales process, but what I quickly let people know that there's a lot of people outside of sales that are part of the sales process. For example, in a manufacturing situation, salesperson goes out, develops it, brings it in. They probably might have to go to an estimator. An estimator's not in sales, but they have a role in that sales process that, hey, they might have to turn around in 48 hours, or it's this type of thing that we're looking for. Are they aware that they're part of the sales process? A lot of companies I talked to, like, they didn't even think of that.
mhm,
And so it's making sure that those other people outside of sales understand the expectation and where they're filling. and where they're supposed to be meeting their objectives as well. So, and then the other thing that sales process does is it creates that common language throughout the organization. So we all say, this is how we do it. This is how we call it in our business. I don't care what XYZ company calls it. No, this is our language. This is our sales process. Everybody under a team understands this is what it's about. And so that's really important to get that commonality, again, back to alignment. And then there's this whole idea of, okay, when do I get it from this part of the process to the next? I call those checkpoints or gates.
Mhm.
And I know we'll probably talk a little about CRMs, but this is where our CRM can be really advantageous. But even if you don't have one, define what that looks like. Before we can move on to the next steps, are all the things that we talked about, do we check all the boxes? Have we asked all the questions? Have we filled out and said, yep, this is the proper profile before we actually move it on? Or do we need to go out and gather further information? If we don't have this information, it's going to get kicked back to us anyways. So don't waste other people's time. This is what we need to we'll define what that next step looks like. Salesperson, ask these questions, and literally in a real sales process, we'll just start writing down questions. What are the things that we should be asking all the time, every time, before we get to that next step in the sales process?
Yeah, makes sense. I think I've mentioned to you before, I'm a certified exit planning advisor,
Yep.
the Exit Planning Institute, and that's part of what it is that I do. I mean, straightforward is at its core, fractional CFO. But so when you were talking about the business owner having all that information up in their head,
Yeah.
you see that a lot.
Yeah.
And so it's, I think, especially in the Midwest here, whether you're a Packers fan or a Vikings fan, right? We talked about that a little bit ago. Inside joke.
Inside
Um,
joke.
inside joke. Um, but I think, and people across the country for that matter, but in the Midwest, I just feel like, work really hard and there's a lot of pride in that. But they don't really stop to think about, wow, have I transferred this knowledge to others in my team? What is it? You get a little bit seasoned, I'll call it seasoned, right? It's like, huh, things can start going wrong. And anyway, to tie it and bring it home, you know, you don't really have a business. You got to be careful that it's not Matthew and Jason LLC,
Yes.
because when we expire, the value goes with it. So there's a huge value into to not just your family, but your employees, your
Yep.
vendors, your customers. I mean, there's just all these stakeholders that are affected um, by doing what is the saying that we have over at the Exit Planning Institute? Exit planning is just simply good business
It is. I've had, I've had the chance to, work with people in exit planning and some M&A people as well. And one of the things that we start talking about is from a sales perspective, because it's like, oh yeah, the finances always are there, or that's been checked on, and the HR, and those are always been the things to check off. And sales has become one of the things that a lot of them are starting to look at because it became the more and more people started looking at this, like to your point, what happens if it's just the owner or one or two people who've been there their whole careers, and what happens when they leave? What Who does our sales? Or what happens with 80% of the sales are with one person? What happens if they leave and nobody else is trained, and there's nothing written down that says this is how we do business here? And if that's going to affect the value of your organization, obviously,
plan.
because
Yeah,
they're going to look at it and go, hold on a second here. And so I work with people to say, hey, one of the things you want to do as you're thinking about exiting this and having that strategy, be it 3 to 5 years from now, is the sales process can get you alignment, can build you that bench. So you're not the only person that understands how to sell it and grow this business. You've got a team behind you and they understand how to grow this business. So if you're removed, which someday you want to be, the company's still going to go on.
right. Yeah. Do they still have, like, anytime you have electrical panels today, they've got the breakers, right? But I grew up in the old country home where you had the screw in
Oh,
fuses,
that's
right?
right. Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. And so if you're that,
I just showed my age.
yeah, I know we just let the cat out of the bag on that one. But think of it as a conduit. If you're a conduit, as the owner, possibly with vendor relationships and right, and then that
Yep.
fuse blows, right, and you've got a very specialized fuse, right? How is that, organization or organism going to operate when that fuse is blown? I like painting things in different, stories in different ways because I think it
Right.
helps bring home the point for people. Well, all right, let's close on this one. So, you have a driver focusing on compensation,
Yep.
right? And misaligned incentives. We want to, avoid that. The wrong comp plan can make top performers look like heroes, but hey, you told me to sell. You should have told me, what, the lowest I could go to maintain costs, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So might come back to just good alignment and communication there. But what are the principles that you've used to build comp plans that drive that right behavior?
Yeah. The first one that it seems so basic, you're like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, don't read into it. It's got to be a win-win for both the sales rep and the organization. And what I mean by that is uh, top to bottom, the sales organization again has to be aligned with the compensation plan. It's got to be a win for the salespeople where they see a real opportunity to grow and to be successful and make money. Let's be honest, most salespeople are simple creatures, except especially some of the best ones. They're going to go to that activity that makes them the most money. So you heard me say this already. Let's go back to ideal client profile all the way up to the top. I want those people to identify and go after the types of things that make us the most money. Along with that, I'm going to make you the most money because you're now bringing in the right things for us. So that's one of the things I want to make sure that I've got aligned when I'm putting in a proper compensation model. Uh, if it's a proper compensation model, the side benefit, a really good one, is you're able to really find or acquire other hunters. And I call really good salespeople hunters. There's hunters and gatherers. Gatherers are those people that go deep. Hunters are, they love the thrill of going out there and finding business and making unlimited amount of money. So if you have a really good comp model, you could probably attract people from a competitor or a different space because they'll see the opportunity like, man, I can make a lot of money there. And that's really where you want to be. The other thing that I talk about when we're doing comp models is it can't be stagnant, which means review it yearly at a minimum. Uh, Things change. Your goals as an organization might change. You might have to slow things down. So you might change the mix of fixed versus commission business, whatever it might be. You might introduce a new product or service that you want to really focus on. Make sure you drive the kind of results that you're looking for within your compensation model to align with that. And then I always have the individual sign it. People go, why do you do that? Because I want people to make sure that they understand what they're signing on to. And so, because there's always something always happens. They're not paying me right. Well, let's go back to that piece of paper that you signed. What are we misinterpreting here? And more often than not, they're like, yeah, you're right. Every once in a while, the model was probably not is a little vague. So that's on the organization. So it kind of holds each other accountable.
Good
But
point. Yeah.
yeah, I think it's really important that both of us sign that. So we both said, hey, we've read it, we understand it, we know what it's going to be look like. And then when I'm out there designing that model, when I'm trying to find that hunter, I want the person that's going to say, I get it, but tell me what happens if I write 150% over goal, Matthew? What happens if I write 200% over goal? That's the kind of person I want to hire because they've already envisioned making goal in their mind. They're like, I get it. I know I make money. Is there a kicker there for me? Is that model say, hey, if you get to 150, I'm going to get a higher commission or whatever? More often than not, those are the types of models that are highly successful. Those are the salespeople that are highly successful. Now, people say, Matthew, geez, that sounds like a lot and maybe they're going to make more than this president and CEO of the company. And you know what? I've been that person, that president and CEO. I hope, and I always said this to my sales team, I hope you all make more money than I do.
Yeah.
Because if you're finding that right client profile, if you're knocking it out of the park, if we're able to properly staff our operations people and we're growing and we're doing the kind of business and we're getting the profit margins that we want, I think I'm going to be a pretty healthy and growing organization. And I'm if I set the right model up, I'm more than offsetting anything that I'm paying a salesperson. Now I just got to get myself comfortable with them making more money with me, and quite honestly, I'm okay with that because I see the long-term vision of how it's going to help my organization grow.
Exactly. And I can tell you from sitting in the finance, the CFO seat,
Yep.
I'm completely okay with that.
Yeah. So yeah,
Completely okay with that.
that's again, when you get that CFO on board and they understand, especially when you're looking at that profit margin and driving it, like, oh, we want to write that all day long. And, we'll pay them X amount more to write that because they know that whatever they bring in there, it's 10 times more for the organization. So
Yeah, it's about building value.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep. Yep. Well, this has been a great conversation. One of the questions that I was thinking would be great to leave the viewers with is if sales and finance were aligned just 10% better, what would that mean for your company's profit this year? Or maybe I should pivot and say your company's value this year and the next year and the one after that. So it's not one that we need to answer, but because I think we're already there, right? If if,
I
if
think
we're
we're already
aligned
there.
better, and so a lot of good information. I want to thank you, Matthew, for sharing today. But like a lot of cooking shows, hey, maybe there's I need to call the chef to get a few insights. And so where can where can an interested individual find you?
Sure, you can go either to the website, which is www.sxwisconsin.com, and you'll see all my partners and myself there. Or if you just want to send me an email directly, it's Matthew, Matthew, at sxwisconsin.com.
Okay. All right. Do you have any interesting events coming up or anything further to mention?
Getting very busy in this fourth quarter, but that's okay.
It
Because
is. Yeah.
it's just that time of year, so I always look forward to it. And for those who are wondering, I am the Vikings fan, so.
You'll be quickly forgiven. So unless you get some business, west of Hudson, Wisconsin, then
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
when
That'll be okay.
when you say, "Hey, I know this guy Jason," I'll be like, "Yeah, sorry, I'm a Packers fan." But I tell you what, the common denominator is when you create value for your organization. It's not just value in terms of money. It's
Nope.
just less stressful environment. There's always going to be obstacles to come, don't get me wrong, but like you just when everyone's rowing on in the same cadence, and you're accomplishing things and you're serving your customers and your community and stakeholders well, I mean, it's just a really good feeling. So
It's one of those things that when it's done right, people always say, what's the one thing that you see that gives strong culture? This is one of those things that almost in every strong culture organization I've been into is they have a set defined process. It's not just sales; it runs throughout the whole organization. It's total alignment, top to bottom, and people know exactly what they need to do and how they can contribute. And it's fun to get up and to be part of that team. It's when it's all over the board and it's dysfunctional, it causes just a tremendous amount of stress within the organization.
it's okay for work to be fun, and we can help you get there.
Exactly, exactly. I love doing that.
All right. Well, thanks again, Matthew, and
Thanks,
thanks
Jason.
everyone for joining us. And we'll catch up again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye bye.